Happy Veterans Day, everybody.
Right.
Never forget.
Here, here.
Agreed. Kevin?
Actually, that was the first thing I was going to say. Any veterans in the room today that we could acknowledge your service?
Raise your hand, Danny.
I was going to say, yeah.
I'm a veteran.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know me, I'm Kevin Bielmeyer. I'm the Economic Development Director for the town of New Milford. Appreciate you coming here this morning. I mean, of course, you're going to come here no matter what. Appreciate you having us in here this morning. We're going to do a sort of abbreviated presentation and then leave room for some Q&A. So, some people have asked me why Century Brass. Of course, you recognize Century Brass there. What it used to look like not such a long time ago. So I just wanted to address the site itself. Brownfield is what it's known as being, and people have asked me what is a brownfield. So, a definition of the brownfield is a former industrial or commercial site where future use is affected by real or perceived environmental contamination. I can tell you, in this case, with this site, it's not perceived, it is real. As you know, it was built in 59, closed in 86. The taxes stopped at that point, became abandoned. The town eventually acquired it in 1999. Remediation work has been ongoing for the last 11 years, costing millions of dollars actually in tax money from the state, federal, and even some town funds as well. So your taxes are definitely been hard at work in the remediation of that site. It's important to note because when the state gives us money to do stuff like this, they obviously expect it to be well spent. And so one of the things that I noticed when I went up to Hartford is that was one of the first questions they asked, what are you doing with that site? So Century Brass is industrial zone, and only 2% of our town is industrial zone. That's important to know. Just going to quickly go through these slides, which you're very familiar with all of these things on Boardman Road, Med and Still, our low bridges, which I'll talk about, more Med and Still, former Nestle. I just point these things out just because these are all things in very close proximity to the site, and that's a view of Med and Still from 7 from the Thai restaurant, and of course Rocky River plant, and we're going to come down to Young's Field, which is of course just down from the town. I'm just pointing out these things because we do have the industrial land. A lot of the zoned industrial land that we have, besides Pickett District, is located on Young's Field Road and up Boardman. So, and it's very close to town. So I know a lot of people have talked about Century Brass and its proximity to town, and there are other industrial areas that are also very close to town, so it's as idyllic and beautiful as our town is, and it is, nonetheless, right at our doorstep is this industrial property and these buildings, some of which has been hopefully discussed, or will go forward to clear, say, Young's Field Road. There's a plan that's been discussed to try to remediate all that land on Young's Field Road, all the move DPW and the public buildings to another location to allow us to have access to the river so that our riverfront isn't taken up by industry. And of course, Kimberly Clark, we're all familiar with, located across right by, this is the Pettibone Field. Okay, so Century Brass itself, this is what it looks like a couple days ago. It's just about done in terms of being taken down. So timeline of 58 to 86 to 99, we're looking at 58 years later. And so I'm just pointing this out because it's time to do something with it, and there's been a lot of plans. I've seen a lot of plans over the years, over the years in my office, and to date, well, let me just talk about it real quick. So, demolition, which is where we're at, is not the definition, at least, of success by the Department of Economic Community Development, who is partially responsible for some of the money that we got to take this down, but development, so they're very interested in what we're going to do with it. So appraisal was done for $2.4 million. In that appraisal, the highest and best use was deemed industrial development. As you may or may not know, it's a very challenging location. A lot of the proposals and ideas that people had when they were trying to market the site for development, challenges were access. Those couple low bridges I showed you, getting there with trucks, it's a very difficult spot to get to for industrial development. It also happens to have high tension power lines that run right through the property. They're there, and of course there's access to natural gas, and those things were cited in the appraisal as attractive to electric power generating plants. So the CERC, Connecticut Economic Resource Center, actually jumped on the bandwagon in '99 to help start marketing this property for us when we acquired it, because it's one of the things they do. And they're also the ones that are responsible for bringing me the attention of Panda Power Funds. So they were approached, we had a conversation, and then the conversation continued. So to date, though, no serious offers have been brought before the townspeople for this site. Again, ideas, certainly, some things were, perhaps considered pie in the sky. It got a certain distance, but in terms of really giving it out to the townspeople to say, consider this, it hasn't happened. So as we evaluated, in the infancy stages of Power Panda Funds, some things we observed was its differences with Sempra, that it's not Sempra. Of course, we heard a lot about that particular project. It has a strong track record of building clean power plants, which they'll get to. They are mindful of community and environmental concerns. It's one of the reasons we're doing these forums and hearing from the people, is to know what the concerns are. And of course, they've been in this business, so they have been addressing them with each plant that they do. It also has and they'll speak to this a bit, it's Power Panda Fund, so it is there's a financial component to the group, and that's important just because there are some projects going on in the state that are projects like this related to power, whether the fuel cell or others, and they've gone all the way through sort of the process of the town and town council, but then when it ultimately gets down to being approved, they don't actually really have the funding to do it. Then they have to go out and sell the project. So this is kind of tied part and parcel. So the funding is a part of this, and that is what allows the offer of the 2.8 million to be real. So as I said, it was appraised for 2.4. The proposed sale of 2.8 is 400,000 more. Promise of jobs during construction, 300 to 500 jobs in peak, 25 to 30 high-paying permanent positions in town. Again, this is just the economic benefits to the town. Tax benefit, approximation of 6 to 10 million a year post-construction. This is based upon just taking our typical mill rate and taking the property that's there and the proposed project site that would go on the site. So what would that do? It could reduce tax burden on the residents. Of course, all this would be decided upon by the town, what they would like to do with the income, or they could invest in projects. There's obviously no shortage of projects, many of which you've heard about over the years, of things that are desired. So they are, I said, community-minded. So obviously landscaping, mitigating measures to lessen the impact on the neighbors and the community is a part of what they do when they design and build these things. They are attuned to the environmental health concerns, and those will be addressed through all the studies that are done, the air and water studies, the approvals with the EPA and DEEP. All that has to happen. It's required, and it's the way they operate. But those are the studies that will yield a lot of the questions, of course, that we got around this project. So at the end of the day, it's just about taking our time, both as a town and as an organization from Panda, to take the time, and part of that time is the land option use agreement. That's actually all we're really talking about at this point, is the opportunity to do the studies, to have an option on the land, which basically just means that we can't go out and sell it out from underneath them while they're doing their due diligence. So there'd be, of course, votes for the town council, votes by the town itself to allow for the land option use. And again, I just appreciate you coming here today just to hear a little bit about the project. Keep an open mind. The spirit of which intended is just a way to grow our economy. And as Economic Development Director, that's my job. So thank you very much. I'm going to introduce the gentleman from Panda Power Funds. We've got Bill Pentak and Brandon Upchurch.
Good morning. I'm reminded today that there are two kinds of people in the world. There are those who wake up in the morning and they say, "Good morning, Lord," and then there are the rest of us that wake up and they say, "Good Lord, morning." So I'm trying to wake up for this. Thank you for the cup of coffee today. We are here today, very simply, we're here because there is a growing forecasted shortage of power in New England, the New England ISO. Brandon will go over with you a little later that there's about a third of the generating capacity in the New England area is reaching the end of its useful life and needs to be replaced. There's a tremendous amount of coal that is going to be retired, and the grid operator, this isn't coming from us, it's coming from the grid operator. New England ISO says that more power is needed. We've come into your community because we believe that this site at the brass mill is an ideal location for a power facility. We're very excited about it. I can tell you that we have the cleanest fleet, cleanest fleet of generating assets in the United States over the last 5 years. And and we are proposing to build a clean 550 megawatt generating facility at the site of the brass mill works. We're not only proposing this as a clean project, but it will be a tremendous economic boon for the area. We'll go over, it will contribute approximately $1.5 billion to this area during construction in the first 10 years of operation. Brandon will go over that with you in more detail here in a little bit. When I tell people that we want to build a power plant, the first thing that I have to deal with is the misconceptions that everyone has in their mind. When you say power plant, people automatically think coal plant and that was built in the 1950s that was just belching black smoke. That's not what we're proposing to build here. We realized that Sempra tried to come in here approximately 16 years ago and build a facility. They did it the utility way. They tried to bulldoze their way in. That's not the approach that we take. We like to get out in the community and meet people and listen to them and find out what's important to the local community, and then try to design a project around what's important to them. So let's talk a little bit about how we got here today. We have met with the new Milford leadership. We started there first. We understand Sempra went straight to the siting council. We don't do that. We start with the people right here. So we've met with the new Milford leadership. We've met with the state leadership. We've presented to the new Milford Town Council and the EDC. And again, we've listened to comments made in those meetings and outside of those meetings. We've had people send us emails. They sent us emails with their questions for the public hearings. There have been a lot of whispers. Well, the reason that Panda did that is Panda didn't want to take live questions. Not so. When we appeared before the EDC, we answered live questions for 4 hours. So we did that because we wanted to try to bake as many of the answers as we could into the presentation for the community, and it was the most efficient way that we could do so. Been monitoring press and social media, and I think after the public hearing last night, someone took the flyers that I had marked up, but we've seen the flyers that have been circulating around the community. There's one that has a picture of one of our plants at the top, and it says, "Is this what you want to see?" Have y'all seen that flyer? I'm sure you've all seen it. I understood they were handed out at the polls. I want to tell you just up front, that's not what you're going to see. That power plant is 4 times the size of the one that we're proposing here for New Milford. There's also been things that have gone out saying they're not going to be creating jobs, and they cite a plant in another part of the world that we have nothing to do with, and it says there were plates from Kentucky and Wyoming and blah, 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 blah. I want to tell you what, we will try, we want the local community, we want New Milford to feel the economic benefits of this project. We will buy as much material as we can here locally. We will use local vendors, local service providers. We will encourage our contractor when we select them to use local subcontractors. We have 2 plants in Pennsylvania, one that came on that we just commissioned the week before last, one that is going to be commissioned on Wednesday. They were built by GNMBA Power Systems, which is located in Connecticut. So we also use Bechtel, but there is someone right there that is Connecticut-based that will have understand all the contacts in this area. So we will put a lot of people to work. We'll create several hundred construction jobs over a 24 to 30 month period. So please take the flyers that you're seeing with a grain of salt. A lot of the information in there was cherry-picked and is absolutely not correct. Okay, so let me just tick off some things real quickly that from the questions that we received. And I don't think this group is too concerned about some of these things, but I realize this is your community and you care about the air that you breathe. You're business leaders, but you care about the air you breathe, so do we. There will be no fracking on this project. There will be no drilling. We will not use potable water for cooling purposes. We're not going to pull any water from the Housatonic River. We're not going to put anything into the Housatonic River. We're doing that to preserve the freshwater resources of Connecticut. We will use some effluent that Panda will purchase from the Sewer Commission, and Brandon will tell you more about that. We'll create a revenue stream there. There are no smokestacks. Now, will there be a stack? Yes, but I try to tell people on these projects, When you drive by a power plant and you see a billowing cloud, what you're seeing is not smoke, it's water vapor. And that's not even coming from the stack, it's coming from the cooling tower. I told people that in the meeting that we had with the EDC, and someone wrote a letter to the editor saying, Bill Pentax tried to snowball everyone and say the only emissions that will come from this plant is water vapor. What I was trying to say is what you see is not smoke, it is water vapor. However, the project that we're proposing for New Milford will not even have that, because this project will be air-cooled. Unlike 95% of the power projects in the United States that are water-cooled, this one will be cooled by air. It will cost us somewhere between $20 to $40 million more to do that, but again, it's one of the ways that we respect the environment. There'll not be any problem with vibrations or LNG. It'll also be a very, very quiet project. So, one of the things that we've been asked over and over again is what kind of details can you give us about the project? The answer is we want to give everyone all the details. It's just an issue for us of timing because of all the due diligence that we have to perform to provide those. And because of the fact that the land is owned by the city and requires a town vote, it has sort of flipped the process for us. So normally we would go out and we would get an option on a piece of land, and when we got the option, we would go out and we would start performing our due diligence, and then we would be going out in the community, we would be meeting with people, we would be talking, we'd be having forums such as this, and we would do that over the course of a year while these studies were being done. And then when it comes time for a public hearing, then we would have all of the information, all of the details that everyone wants. But unfortunately, I mean, we're great with the town voting to approve this. We don't have an issue with that. It's the way Connecticut does things. We want to fit into the system here. We realize that you have a process and we need to fit into it. But it has sort of flipped that around for us, because at this point we don't have all of the detailed information that we would normally have. And so we put on this slide just to give people an idea of what it costs us to do due diligence on a site. Just to do the environmental assessment, site assessments, there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. You're looking at about $100,000, and it has to be particular to the site. You can't have an environmental site assessment without a site, and that's why we need the option. The permitting to do all of the air modeling studies, the dispersion studies, and all of those things that need to be done, that's about $500,000. Then for us to do an interconnection study, that is a study where we go to the New England ISO and we say, look, we want to set up a power plant at the site of the old brass mill, and they have to study it and make sure that it's not going to hurt the reliability of the electrical system, that it's okay to inject power at that particular point on the grid. But they're not going to pay for the study, they have the developer pay for that. So that's about another $500,000. Then for us to go about the process of selecting all of the equipment, and I can tell you with a project that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars, there is a lot of equipment to purchase. There's a lot of technology that's out there. You have, for your turbines, you have Mitsubishi, you have Siemens, you have GE. They're all producing fantastic products, and they're trying to compete with one another. And so we're always trying to look, should we go Siemens, should we go GE, should we go Mitsubishi? What's going to be the cleanest, most efficient equipment that we can use? And so this process of actually designing the project is about $1 million. So as you can see there, we don't want to go out and spend $2.5 to $3 million without having a guarantee that the land isn't going to be sold out from underneath our feet. And that's all that we're asking the town of New Milford to do, is just give us an option on the land, let us do our studies, and we will come back and we will share every bit of that information with you. By law, we're required to do that. It becomes part of the public domain. So I'm going to just tell you very quickly who is Panda Power Funds. We were formed in 2010 by the senior management team of Panda Energy International. Panda Energy is our predecessor company, and our roots go way back beyond 2010. They go all the way back to 1982. We were one of the original independent power producers in the United States. when the Congress allowed or gave birth to this industry. We're a 70-person full-service professional team. We have a very deep bench. Our employees have a lot of industry experience. Our general partners have a tremendous amount of industry experience, 28 years and 19 years, I should say average, not combined tenure at Panda Energy and Panda Funds. So you say, well, that's great, why are you telling me this? I'm telling you this so that you know we've been around for a long time, we know what we're doing, and we're a very stable company. You need to know that about a firm that wants to come in and build a project of this size in your community. We have financed approximately $5 billion in generating capacity during about a 2.5-year period. Bechtel has told us, I think it was last year, that we had more generation under construction in the United States than any other firm. We're also Siemens' #1 customer of turbines worldwide. We're usually first or second. It kind of goes back and forth between Panda and Saudi Arabia or Egypt. They're building a lot of generating capacity there. Just to give you an idea of the projects that we've built, this is a 758 megawatt facility that we've built in Temple. This is actually 2 power plants, phase 1 and phase 2. This is the one that was on the flyer. Again, there'll only be 1 stack here, and there are 4 here. So this project is much, much bigger than the one that we're proposing. We have a project in North Texas in Sherman. You'll be glad to know that they have an expression that they use in the town council there. We were delighted to hear they call it the Panda effect. We have generated so many taxes for them. It has just changed their whole budget scenario. They have the funds that they need to do the improvements, some that have been on the books for a long time, and all the jobs that we've created. So they said that it's totally turned their community around in terms of their tax dollars.
Are we going to have 1 stack or 2 stacks here?
1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a Liberty project. We just commissioned that last week in Towanda, Pennsylvania. And Patriot, we will have a commissioning ceremony for this on next Wednesday. This is a project that we're building in Leesburg, Virginia, a 778 megawatt facility. They have very stringent laws there for environmental standards. Not as stringent as Connecticut, however, I think Connecticut may have the most stringent standards in the country. And this is a project that we're very proud of here that is under construction right now. This was a coal plant that was built in the 1950s in central Pennsylvania, and it operated from 1950 all the way to 2014 when they shut it down. And so we're cleaning it off, and we are building at this site a brand new 1,124 megawatt natural gas facility in what will be one of, if not the largest, coal and natural gas power replacement projects in the United States. We also know a lot about renewable energy. We built the largest solar farm in the northeast United States, 26 miles southwest of Philadelphia in New Jersey. I think this is where some of my gray hair came from. A lot of late night meetings with the Planning Commission on this one. Part of it was the size of this. You really can't tell from this height, but what you're looking at there is 77,000 6-foot solar panels that's producing approximately 18 megawatts of AC power. The site at the brass mill is about 76 acres. 70 acres. We're going to be using, the footprint will be around 36. The footprint proper will be producing 550 megawatts. This uses 100 acres of land, and it produces 18. We've had a lot of questions, why aren't you building solar? Well, in order for us to produce 550 megawatts of generating capacity, which is on the order of the number that New England needs, it would require 3,000 acres of solar panels. So the energy density is just not there. We're not against solar, but it's not there. Panda has been recognized nationally and internationally with Project Finance Deals of the Year. We've actually won 2 or 3 since 2012. We're really proud that Dallas Business Journal gave us the Green Deal of the Year award for a natural gas power plant that we built in Sherman, Texas. It was so clean. I'll just mention this very briefly. We intend to be good citizens of this community. We try to plug in everywhere we go. We try to do good things for the community. We have helped keep a home for abused children open, dedicated cars to them, built a school in Nepal. Just recently in Leesburg, we helped build a rather expensive playground for handicapped children so that they could play right next to children who aren't handicapped or have challenges. We really like to plug in. By the way, the plant manager that we hire will be required to live here in New Milford. We want our people to be accessible to you, and we want to hire as many people in New Milford to work at the plant as we can, and we will set up opportunities for training for people to do that. So how will Panda conduct itself? Well, we're going to take our time. We will work really hard to keep you informed. We are working to listen to your questions and views, to be transparent in our answers, even if we know there are ones that you may not like or looking for. We will work with you, give back to the community, and we will be good stewards of the environment. Again, we have the cleanest fleet of generating assets in the United States. We don't build Chevys. There's nothing wrong with a Chevy, but we build Rolls Royces. We build state-of-the-art power plants using the latest in emissions control technology. It's just part of the DNA of our company. It's what we were founded to do way back in 1982, and that's the reason that we're called Panda, because our owner wanted to pick a symbol of the environmental movement to demonstrate that we're going to bring clean power plants to the area. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Brandon Upchurch.
Morning. Thank you for having us.
Excuse me.
I know we only have probably 20-25 minutes, so I'll try to rush through some of these slides to get to the important slides that I'm sure you guys are worried about. But what I want to talk about first is just the market itself, why we are here, and then get into some of the project details which we go through. First and foremost, ISO New England Independent System Operator is who is responsible for keeping the lights on in this room. So they're responsible for the supply and demand and moving the electrons from this state to the other 5 states within the region. They do not buy or sell power, they do not own generation, they do not deal with pipelines, etc. They're solely responsible for keeping the lights on. With that, ISO New England, there is a need for power. What you see here is directly from their website. You see more than 4,200 megawatts of generation have been retired or will be retired by 2020. Another 6,000 megawatts, which you see in the orange here, are at risk of retirement. That includes almost 2,200 megawatts of power in Connecticut alone. That's 400 megawatts of coal, another almost 1,800 megawatts of oil-fired units. So with a new unit like this, more of these will be displaced as well. And that's roughly 30% of the total generating capacity in the region. Quick quote here from Ms. Blomberg from ISO New England says, New England has enough capacity to meet the needs of today, but what lies in the future with the retirement of coal and oil-fired power plants leaves a questionable future. There may be challenges ahead, and that's another reason why we are here today. Here's a quick slide that I think it's good for people to see your current power plants in Connecticut. Here's Connecticut right here, neighboring states. The larger ones you see here in red are the larger gas plants. You've got larger oil-fired, coal, some nuclear, millstone. There's uncertainty about nuclear as well right now. So with a newer, cleaner, efficient power plant, some of these older plants will be displaced with the newer, efficient plant coming online. This real quick, and I'll go through this real quick, but the useful life of the plant's roughly 30 years. Obviously, you can retrofit them, upgrade them, etc. Just like a car, you can change the engine. But this shows, all the power that you saw on the previous slide. All these plants are operating. These are the older, less efficient machines. You've got coal, you've got some nuclear, some gas, a lot of oil-fired. These will be displaced, which actually lowers region-wide emissions and lowers power prices. This is the same slide for Connecticut. Excuse me for going fast, but I'm trying to get to all the information. So what will this project be? A one-on-one combined cycle. So one combustion turbine, one steam turbine, and one HRSG, which is a heat recovery steam generator. Approximately 550 megawatts. That's enough power to power 500,000 homes. This will be fueled with clean natural gas. And it will be air-cooled, which is very important. Like Bill stated, 95% power plants in the United States are water-cooled. This will use roughly 50 to 100,000 gallons a day. We will look to contract with the wastewater treatment plant to take a source of water that is just being discharged into the river currently. There's no revenue for the town. We will take that, pay for the cleaning, which is another 10 to 15 million on our site. Revenue for the town, discharge it back to the town, and a good source of water, rather than using potable water or water from the Housatonic. This site has 6.5 million gallons a day of water available from the Housatonic. We will not use that. Here's a quick video just to show you what a combined cycle power plant looks like. Explain it. Combustion turbine, your HRSG heat recovery steam generator, and your steam turbine. So the fuel comes in here, it's burned, combusted to create electricity. The excess heat, hot exhaust gets caught in the heat recovery steam generator. The water comes in that I just spoke to, which creates steam. Steam goes to the steam turbine, which creates more electrons, more electricity. So you've got electricity from the combustion turbine and the steam turbine. The leftover water, so say 25%, let's say 20,000 gallons a day will be discharged back. This is the same cycle that we just spoke to. So let's talk about the site itself. Here's the brass mill site. Here's a sample rendering of what the plant could look like. We just talked about the blue right here is the heat recovery steam generator. You got your combustion turbine, steam turbine. This is your air-cooled condenser that we spoke to rather than water-cooled. Admin buildings, etc., some water. This will actually be covered by buildings. We do not have it in this picture just to show you what the equipment looks like. When you cover it with buildings, not only is it more aesthetically pleasing, but it reduces noise, which I'll talk to you later as well. This is 318,000 square feet, roughly 8-ish acres. This is on 12.95 acres, so you can see the size of the footprint. Why we like the site, one, brownfield remediation received roughly $10 million in the last 15, 20 years. Another $2.5 million in the last couple of years. It's currently being demolished. For a power plant for a company like us, why we like it, you've got a power line, 345 kV lines. We will not have to build additional transmission lines across New Milford. You've got, so the switch yard, which could be here or here, this is just rendering, will tie into that transmission line. You've got a gas line right here, so that's the key infrastructure you need for a facility like this. And it's also industrial zones. We do not have to go to the zoning commission and take a residential property and make it industrial.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
You say you have gas lines here. Are the gas lines that are on the road or in the road big enough, or do you have to actually physically bring in new gas lines to feed your plant?
You have to build a lateral to the Iroquois line.
You do?
Yes.
A brand new one?
Yeah.
Okay.
This
Thank
is
you.
less than a mile away.
Okay.
Site plan, we just talked about the equipment there. Let's go into the benefits. So why it's needed. Needed more reliable power source in New England. We talked about that at the beginning. Beneficial use of the property, which we just discussed. New jobs, the approximately 500 jobs during pre-construction. Construction is 24 to 30 months, so 2 to 2.5 years. 25 to 30 full-time jobs post-construction, so there'll be a staff that's on the plant 24 hours a day. We will contract with qualified employees from the local area, like Bill mentioned. So as much employees that want to work at the plant will set up training, etc., to make sure that anybody in New Milford and the neighboring areas will be able to work at the plant. Bill mentioned this as well, $1.5 billion to the local economy during construction in the first 10 years. And I'll get into that in the next slide. One of, if not the largest taxpayers in New Milford. And we've run some numbers. Obviously, we can't assess the value today. We have an idea, but if you look at those numbers, it looks like we will be actually the largest taxpayer. It's currently Kimberly-Clark. Low impact to the environment. One of the cleanest natural gas fuel plants in the United States. Low visibility landscape property. That's very important to us. Air-cooled facility, which we talked about for the savings of water. And region-wide emissions decrease through the displacement of older power. So again, when you have a newer, cleaner, efficient plant come online, it displaces the older units that are currently in the system that are at risk of shutting down. Here's a property tax I think all of you will understand how to calculate property tax, so I don't need to go into that. And by the way, this presentation was set up to address all the questions that we've received over the last month or so, so that's why some of the details in here. So property tax revenue, Kevin said it's roughly 6 to 10 million. We do a conservative assessment of first 5 years, 25 million. 15 years, 50 million, 30 years, 100 million. So you just see right there the economic boom that this will have for New Milford. You see total economic output in the first 10 years of 2.3 million. That's equal to the goods and services sold in the economy or revenues for businesses in the local economy. Salaries, so the first 10 years, 28.5 million. During construction, over 2.5 years, it's 26.5 million, because you have, the more workers, the 500 peak workers during that time.
Can I ask another question here?
Can I get through this one?
Okay, go ahead.
Estimated local spending over 30 years of 163 million. So just the impact to the local town is a huge effect. The processes, so here's obviously a very important question. How do we protect the health and public safety of local citizens? So you go through a long process, the Connecticut Siting Council, the air permit, etc. So the Siting Council has exclusive jurisdiction over the siting of electric generation facilities. So they do a certificate of environmental compatibility of public needs. Your needs focused on, is there a need for generation? Is there retired resources? Benefits, economic benefits, job benefits, environmental benefits. Is it displacing older units? There are very stringent standards, very stringent environmental standards imposed for the welfare and protection of citizens of New Milford. And also a very important fact about this is there will be opportunities for the citizens of New Milford. We are to be in the public and learn about this, to be a party of it. The council has 180 days from the date of we file an application to give us a response. It could extend for another 180 days. But they're also required within the first 30 to 150 days if we file an application to come to the town. There'll be people that are allowed to go to the site, act, and be a part of the public hearing, etc. To show you how detailed the siting council application, a lot of people ask what we have to go through for something like this. Now, this is just some of the reports that you have to do. So you talk about the plan itself, the water use control systems, air emissions, waste, traffic flow, etc. So we will do all those analyses for this plan, including noise. So you name it, it will be done. Furthermore, how is your air quality protected? So the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, is responsible for that. So we will work with them on the air permitting application. With that, you do modeling, air dispersion modeling, which depicts what the stack height will be. They're required to do all these analyses, and their sole job is to safeguard the public health and the environment. So we would never get a permit if it's going to affect any of the local citizens, and that's the main key there. Again, opportunities for public input. So all of this is public knowledge. It's with the state. All of that is online. It will be given to the citizens of New Milford, etc. The typical, I think this is important, the typical average processing time is 12 to 18 months. We see some permits are 0 to 45 days. But this is a very stringent process. The amount of detail that you go through for this, it takes roughly 12 to 18 months. And with that, how is it protected? We are required to use BACT, best available control technology. So any control technology that's available out there for emissions control, we will use, and we are required to do so. So there's, some people have asked about which pollutants come or which emissions come from the plant. So National Ambient Air Quality, US EPA, has known of 6 pollutants. So sulfur dioxide, particulate matter, nitrogen dioxide, CO, ozone, and lead. So we will, while we're doing this air modeling, dispersion modeling, etc., we'll have details for all of that. So we will have a full analysis that we can share with you all. Obviously, these will be kept at levels that do not affect the health and public safety of New Milford citizens. Emission controls, some people have asked us that, what will be on there. This gets a little detailed. Dry load NOx, SCR selective catalytic reduction, oxidation catalysts, so these all help lower NOx, CO, VOC. And the very important part here is, well, how do you know what emissions are coming from the plant? You have what's called CIMS, Continuous Emissions Monitoring System. So 24 hours a day, every day of the year, you are monitored. And the state knows it. There's obviously a system that they see. So if you're above that level, you're in trouble and your plant's not running. This further just illustrates, that previous slide, so I think it's very important to see this. Evaluates, when you're doing your permitting and your modeling, you're evaluating the maximum potential to emit under positive, the highest emitting conditions that would never occur simultaneously. So what you're doing there is you're looking at a worst case scenario that doesn't happen, but you're required to do so with the state. And in that worst case scenario, they're checking to see if there is any issues with health and public safety. There will not be, or you will not get a permit. So that's very important to know. We talked about gas and where you're getting your gas. Here's the Iroquois pipeline. Here's New Milford Yankee Gas. It's the same gas line that is serving New Milford at this time, businesses and some homes in the area. Let's get into more of the site, the water, wetlands, some other questions we've had in the past. What are the environmental impacts of the water? We talked about an air-cooled facility. This is not water-cooled, so you're 50 to 100,000 gallons a day versus 6 million gallons a day. Using water that no one else is using, so we will treat it ourselves from the wastewater treatment plant. We're not looking to use potable water. We're not looking to use Housatonic water. And also this gives additional revenue to the town that they're not having right now. We will pay for the pump from that wastewater treatment plant. We will pay for the line about 1.5 miles to the site for this water. So we're not asking the town to pay for that through tax money, etc. We'll do it ourselves. Some questions around zoning. It's industrial zone site. There's been some questions around wetlands. Yes, there's 1.95 acres of wetlands on the site. Here are the wetlands here. We will obviously not build on that. We will not impact any of the wetlands. There's been questions around the flood zone. This is the 500-year flood zone in the orange. This is the 100-year. One, we will not build on the flood zone. And two, the real impact that you're focused on is the 100-year as well. What are we going to do with the remaining acres? And as business folks in the town, what additional revenue can you guys see? First of all, like I just said, we will not build on the wetlands. We will use part of the property for temporary laydown during construction, so your equipment, etc., that comes down while you're building the property. Extensive landscaping, so you will see when you drive up to the site. We've had some people say your site looks like a golf course driving up to it. So we will work hard to make it look good. That is aesthetically pleasing to the town. And then, what we're talking about internally too is what else can we do on the site that adds revenue for the town? So incremental power generation through solar panels and/or energy storage. Obviously, energy storage is an up and coming technology, so we're looking at that as well. If you guys need to throw in questions, feel free.
Question.
Yeah.
I don't remember the number you said about the impact on spending on the local economy, but I want to say it was a couple of million. So if I do the math,
163.
thank you. So if I do the math, you said 12 to 18 months for permitting,
Yep.
plus 24 to 36 for construction, so roughly 4 years before it's up and running.
Right.
Yesterday I heard from realtors and homeowners, they're very concerned about the value and saleability of the homes up the Aspen watershed. So here's my question, sorry about the long preamble. What about the impact, and do your numbers include the negative impact to all those homeowners who have been updating their 20-year-old homes, keeping the local economy going, putting in new furnaces, roofs, aesthetically changing their landscaping? That's going to stop. And they're going to stop spending money in the 4 years while you guys get ramped up. Do your numbers include that?
No.
All right.
No, we would have no way of knowing, no way of calculating that, what it is. But I can tell you that, again, we chose a site that was zoned heavy industrial, and we do that to protect housing values. Because it's wrong to go out and buy a residential piece of land or agricultural piece of land where people have built homes and then change the rules on them and change the zoning and put a heavy industrial project there. So the housing values that have been established in that area already presume the presence of a heavy industrial project at that site. And if you stop and think about it, what has been at that site now is a 30-year dilapidated eyesore, graffiti polluted site. So we don't think that this project is going to negatively impact housing values.
Can I respectfully disagree?
Sure.
And we've had this conversation before, so I apologize for taking down this path again, but I really want to leave you guys at this point as you head back to your lives. Yes, it's zoned industrial, but since the Century Brass Mill has been not in use, there have been a ton of houses built in the last 20 years, and they they were built with nothing as serious as a natural gas plant putting out the type of emissions it's going to put into that valley. So I just want you to think about that. Yes, it is industrial today, but things happen in the interim period that don't make it as black and white as somebody who doesn't have the history of the area under their belt. So just think about that.
No, I understand that completely. I don't know really, just to be candid, what all we can do about that when people decide they want to buy a home or build a home around an industrial zone area.
I just want to make sure you have a full picture as you're deciding whether or not to do this, because the townspeople and the people that live in that valley are very much against that. And my little fragile economy, the Village Green, I heard from some young families who just moved here last night, that they moved here because it's a quiet country setting, it's not a suburban setting, and they're astounded that, and very much against this happening. So just please consider that.
Well, believe me, we heard it one loud, clear in the first public hearing that we had. Yes, sir, maybe I'll just go to.
Yeah.
Q&A.
So, I've actually been involved in this. I've built plants, I've remediated plants here in the U.S., abroad. I've done it through private equity, and I've gone through exactly what you guys are going through. And I can appreciate, how you're trying to do it. The last plant that I built was in Mexico. And the Mexican government made us put our plant in the hinterland, okay, off a rail spur, far, far, far away from Juarez, where our location was. And it's a very professional presentation. I get that everything is monitored, tested. You're using blue chip companies to do this. And I've watched all your presentations. The number one question that I'm hearing from this town, including myself, because I don't want any pollution. Just hear me out. I don't care if we get $30 million a year of economic development. I don't want any pollution. But the number one question I'm hearing from the community and from the business people in this town is, what is the impact of pollution? I get that you have to do your studies. I get it has to be GE, Mitsubishi, or whatever. I get it. But because I've had to make these presentations, I'm hearing you hide behind what the range of potential pollutants could be. You know what they are. You've built these plants, you're experts, I get it. So what I'm not hearing is, folks, if we put in this size plant with this type of technology, here's what you can expect to talk about in terms of what kind of pollution that thing's going to spit out. For me, it's a behemoth, it's huge, it's way too much. But I'm just me. But what I'm hearing from the community is they want to know. And why do we have to wait, okay, for this 2 to 3 year study to happen, okay, for you to then come out and tell us? I feel like big switch is maybe not the correct phrase. But why can't I get a sense for that now? Because I think you know.
Well, let me answer this question. First of all, we're not trying to hide anything. As I told you, our normal way of doing things throughout our whole history has been we do the studies and then we roll it out. This has been very new to us. Frankly, we feel like we're just saying hello right now to the community. We've been out, 6 weeks? That we've been out meeting people. So this is extremely early in the process for us. We're going to go back and see what we can pull together to provide that information that you want, to give you some round numbers. We've never been here before in this kind of a situation. So what we were trying to do is establish, look, Connecticut set standards, we're gonna come in, our limits, we're gonna come in well below that. So we were trying to provide the bigger picture, but we're going to go back and see what we can do to provide just that information. We're not trying to hide anything. We're climbing up a learning curve here just like you are. We're trying to learn new Milford, and we're having to go about things differently than we have. But we're not trying to stonewall or hide anything.
So if you go back and you tell them that the number one concern that we're hearing from the community is they want to know how much pollution is coming out. My guess is they know that answer. And they can model that answer, and I don't care whether the state has high or low. It doesn't matter to me what the government wants. I don't want a pollution generator, however moderate. My chainsaw's modern, okay? My new car is more efficient than my last car. I get it, incrementally so. But they have that information. So I plead that you come back and tell us what that is. I think it's fair for us to know approximately, and range it. Okay, I know we're not going to pin you down to one
We've
number.
heard you, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We're going to do that, but I'm going to tell you, if you're looking for zero, you're not going to have anything at that site.
That's why I'm
Because
guessing,
everything-
but I
everything
want you
has
guys to
some-
answer the question rather than saying, we don't have the exact plant configuration yet. Because you know within
10%.
10% of what this thing's going to emit. I know you do, and I know you know it's sitting here today. Okay,
We-
you're both professionals, you represent your company well, but when you hide behind that,
Sir, we're not trying to hide anything.
well,
What
that's
we've done-
my opinion.
Again, we've done things, we're having to climb the learning curve here and do things differently because there's a public vote. And it's just, your company has ways of doing things. In fact, it's not just us, it's anyone in our industry. What you try not to do is to pull figures out of your ear. You try to give people detailed, accurate information. At the end of the day, New Milford will have everything. That's just the way we've done it in the past. So again, we're just saying, hello, we've heard you loud and clear, we're going to do that.
Okay, well, I know you've heard it for numerous meetings. We still have to wait. That's what I'm hearing today.
Well, we can't, we've been here, like I said, we've been here, 3 days now? There's no way we could have done it from Wednesday to today.
But there was the initial presentations, the initial questions. I understand you guys are not pivoting, you're giving us your pitch, I get it. But what you're hearing from us is the number one question is, how much is this thing can remit into our community? That's the question I'm hearing. I've been watching your meetings and I'm respectful. I'm just me. I don't want any pollution. But I want to be able to say to myself, this is how much is going to be emitted. And I know you know the answer. I know you know the answer.
Maybe let me talk about our process real quick. So typically what we like to do is do this modeling, dispersion modeling for sites specific, right? So with that, the dispersion modeling, people ask stack height. Well, that depicts, how tall your stack is as well, right? So with all of that, that tells you the emissions, the profile, the region-wide emissions, et cetera, and how it lies in this community. Can we go back to you guys 100% and give you generic what it could look like? Sure, and we're going to, like Bill stated, we hear it loud and clear, we're going to do that. But typically what we like to do is do that modeling, do the dispersion modeling, and say, here's the exact footprint of what it will look like. And that's the difference. And we have compliance, we have investors that say, don't go out there and just say it could be X or Y. We like being exact, but we hear you loud and clear.
It just feels like I'm looking at this brand new car. I really like it, it's modern, but I'm not going to tell you the price until you get to the sales manager at the very, 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 very end. That's the way this feels to me.
Okay, well,
Okay, so when I go to buy a car, I say, look, give me an idea of what we're talking about here before we negotiate. I feel like I'm not hearing that, and we're asking for it.
So let me tell you another thing. So, we do know what the emissions are giving out at our existing plants, but every one of those plants is much bigger than the one that we're proposing here. Okay, the next smallest one up is 758 megawatts. So, and you can't do a simple ratio and tell what that's going to be. So again, we've got to go back and we've got to do some homework, and we'll try to estimate that and get it in a range. But for us, this is just so early in the process. To go back to your car illustration, at this point we don't even have the wheels or the engine or any of that stuff. We're so early in this process. So it's not a function of us hiding anything from you. It is just a function of how very early we are. But we came here, like I said, we came here to also listen. We've heard that message loud and clear at every meeting that we've had, and we will come back at you with something, okay?
How long before we can expect that number? A week, 2 weeks?
It'll be within a week or two.
A week or two, perfect. Okay, great.
And obviously before any folks that haven't been scheduled. So.
Excuse me?
I said, and obviously also before any voting were to occur, because none of that has been firmly scheduled.
No, but I mean, they could relay that information to you and get that information out to us really easily, so that would be great.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
You keep referring to the piece of property being the industrial zone, and that's attractive to you, and that is suitable for a plant such as yours. You showed us a variety of pictures and a variety of sizes of plants throughout the country that you've previously built. And I can appreciate that those pictures are a bird's eye view, really down to the building. But what we can't see is what is surrounding that building. Where are the communities and their downtowns and the housing and the residential areas in comparison to the plants you've already built? I would like to see that.
Okay, thank you. We'll work on that.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering why you've proposed to build this size plant, and it seems that you're only using about half the property. Would you be able to expand this at some point in
So,
time? Or?
yeah, we've had that question. This size plant we feel like is a good fit for the market itself and the needs for the market. We don't want to come in here and we build some plants that are 1,000 plus megawatts. We don't want to do that here. Are we looking to expand this plant? No. You would have to go through. So we would say we move forward and go through this process to expand the plant. You'd have to do it all over. So you go back to site council permitting. They look at it as two actual, completely separate projects. So no, we wouldn't do that.
Let me just add to that, because I know that's come up a lot, and I actually haven't added to it, and I need to. When we first were talking about this property, this site, we weren't even looking at the whole 70 acres, 69.67 acres. It was really just narrowing in just on the footprint of what was expected, that was needed for the plant. Because what we were thinking is that any extra land we could use for some of the other ideas we had, like moving public works. What we found is, once we did the appraisal, we found out there's only 36 acres of buildable land on the site. So even though it's a 70-acre site, you can't build on it because of wetlands, and so you can't build on the whole site. So it became obvious that, okay, well, we could try to carve out a little piece of the buildable land for these other purposes, but then when we realized that in the process of building a plant, there's laydown and there's land that's needed peripherally while they're building it that then they don't need long term. They would just give it back or just borrow it for a while. We realized it would hold up any progress of moving those buildings like Department of Public Works to the site because we have to wait until this was built. So we thought, you know what, it's cleaner. Let's just, moving those buildings up there anyway is not the best idea for a lot of reasons. They're not even keen on the idea of being there. So we thought, well, rather than prohibit or hold up that progress, let's find another site for that. Since the appraisal was done on the 69.67 acres, it was a clean parcel. We're looking at apples to apples. And let's just say, hey, you know what, buy the whole thing because it's being remediated, and do we really want to hang on to a brownfield? Do we really want to own, this, or try to figure out somebody else that maybe wants to buy a little piece? So I just want to make sure that's clear because I don't think at any point in the conversation from Panda were they thinking they wanted more land, that they wanted, to your point, possibly expand. It was the opposite.
Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. One is, how much noise does one of these bad boys put out? And the other question is, have you partnered with the local engineering firm yet for the survey work and testing? Because I know of one.
Here's noise, and I started opening up to questions. There's more of the presentation. So here, quick example of 30 dB decibels. That's a soft whisper of 15 feet. 100 decibels at pile driver at 100 feet. This is actual data from Liberty, which is an 829 megawatt plant using an air-cooled condenser, the same as this. It's two one-on-ones. And with stringent noise standards, use of mitigation measures, like I talked about the buildings, etc. At full load, 3 tests done at 400 feet, so 400 feet all around the site. The decibels came out at 50, 51, and 48, which is equal to a typical suburban daytime. So you're not going to, be a mile away and hear a rumbling plant. They just aren't allowed.
Oh, before you move to the
And
engineering
to your question on,
can I just ask a question about the noise?
yeah.
What's the backup power on this? Is it diesel generation?
No,
What's the backup going to
none.
be? There's no backup.
No. Well, we will purchase fixed gas transport gas. We pay extra to make sure that that gas is there.
Are you asking about an emergency generator?
Yes.
We'll have an emergency generator.
And it'll be diesel?
We get diesel.
How much diesel is going to be stored on the site? How much noise will that generate?
Don't have an answer for you.
Okay, sorry to interrupt your question.
On the survey, have we hired a local firm? No. We are just, like Bill stated, just starting the process, looking for a land option. Before we spend real money, we obviously have management too that says you can't go out and do all these. Well, one, you can't file an air permit if you don't have a piece of land. You just can't. It's state. We have not hired a local firm yet.
I have a follow-up question on the, why is the generator diesel and not gas?
You have a backup generator. If the plant goes down, if it's needed, you do have a backup generator. So
Well, the question is why diesel and not gas?
we are not that far. Can you use gas? Sure.
It's
Yes, ma'am.
typically diesel in the design, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's typically.
Yes, ma'am.
That'd
Yes,
be
sir.
pretty rare.
Apparently, there's a lot of concern about you getting this option and then taking years and years and years to complete the process or to even start building or something. Is there any guarantee to the timeline
Yes.
with that option?
Yes. There is. Off the top of my head, I mean, we have to, I think within the first 18 months, we have to make a decision. So, if we're moving forward.
54 months, right?
But you've got an extension. There's an initial option period, which we would do some of this due diligence while the remediation is taking place. So whenever the remediation ends, the initial option period goes to the next phase. So obviously, we can't do certain things on the site with remediation. And then we pay more money to get into the 18 months. Within that 18 months, obviously, you would start all your permitting, et cetera, even on the initial option period. But to your question, one, if it's taken 4 years, it's not going to happen. We would know within, I would say, 6 to 12 months with permitting what the impacts look like. We'd share it with all of you all, make sure that the project makes sense for everybody here. Another thing in the option that we've been asked about is, can we buy the piece of property and then sell it? So we all send our real estate brokers. No, we can't. It's only used for this project. If this project doesn't go forward, all the money we paid stays with the town. It's your piece of property. So we're not looking to buy it and market it or do anything else on it. It's for this sole purpose, or we are not here.
And what's the amount of money? Because I think there was a lot of discussion.
2.8 million,
No, the option price.
roughly $100,000.
What's the first check that you're going to write to the town?
Yeah, 25,000.
Yeah, so it's not $2.8 million check, it's a $25,000 check.
25 for the initial, and then 50.
And then 52 years later, and then maybe 52 years later.
No, 50 is right after the initial option period. So that could be 2 months from now or 6 months, depending on the remediation.
And is it cancelable or not cancelable? It's because you just said. if
There's
we get through
termination
this, then
clauses.
There is termination clauses?
Yeah, absolutely. Default language, there's all kinds of language. It's an option. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It went back and forth a lot of time. His lawyers, a lot of time. We did
Okay.
I'm being honest with you. Don't believe me, but I am.
a lot of paychecks.
Let's go with this gentleman here because he hasn't asked a question.
Yeah, please.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
On the options, and like we're talking about the options, we're talking about having a town council meeting and a referendum to propose the option to the people
Yes, sir.
of the town to then vote on it. Then you go to the siting council and you go to DWP and do all of your due diligence during your option period.
Right.
Do you then come back to the town for the townspeople to actually allow you to move ahead with that option? Or once the option is given, like say you go to the siting council, we get information the townspeople like, they support it, they don't like, they don't support it. Do we get another crack at the apple to say, all right, well, in light of all the information that we've now received based on information, pollution, traffic, congestion, noise,
Right.
do we get an opportunity to say we don't want to allow? You're getting the option to allow you to do the due diligence for a period of time. Do we get an opportunity to say, in light of the information, we don't want you guys to purchase
So that's a question for the town. Obviously, what I believe, what I've read in the town bylaws is there an opportunity for a second referendum? I believe there is in town bylaws. I don't, there's not.
There's not.
You
So
will
once it's done,
definitely-
it's
but-
asking about the termination clause.
And I get the fact that we get to go before the siting council and have our
Which is-
conversation.
Right.
Which is important. I mean,
That's what that's for.
The public gets a full
But I
opportunity.
understand that, but my concern is that we're giving up the option at the beginning without having the actual information that will be.
We can't give
No,
you
you guys are
information
great, you guys are
prior
great
to the
guys.
option.
I mean, but you
Right.
guys will be selling your wares somewhere else in a period of time, and we'll be here. We don't want to have to argue for our town with somebody, some bureaucrat somewhere else. It's an option. I'm just saying, it's an option, it's not a full sale. If that's the situation, I feel that seemed like we do have a town council that was voted in by the people, that maybe the town needs to consider at what time is there a referendum. Because if we're only allowed one referendum, I would rather have a referendum when we have all the information, per se, rather than before we get the information, just based on an option. And then
That's a fair point.
just one other point. You say you're going to probably draw 80,000 gallons of water from the sewer treatment plant across to your facility.
Yes.
Then you'll discharge 25,000 gallons back after use, correct? So I know you had mentioned that you'll build your own treatment plant within your facility, because when the water comes from West Street, it's not clean enough for you guys for what you need to utilize.
We'll pay to treat it, yes, sir.
Okay, so then, after your person gets dispensed it, will it go back into your own treatment plant? So you'll actually be recycling your own water, so you'll be drawing then possibly 60,000? I just was wondering, because are we going to send the raw water back to the sewer plant, or are you guys going to basically have a constant cycle, so you don't need to draw as much, and we don't have to have a lateral going to your plant and coming back, because it's going to be a lot of construction to get a line from West Street to where you guys are.
Yeah, so it's about a mile and a half. We would treat it there. We would discharge it back as long as they want to take it. It's early conversations with that, but we would treat it opposed to going through again and give it back to the wastewater treatment plant.
So you
treat it when it comes
recycle it
in.
back, you wouldn't recycle it back into
No,
your
that's not
own?
how we do it, no. But with the line and the construction you're talking about, when you're building a water line, for that amount of water, it's not a big line, it's a couple inches. To put two of those lines, one there, one back, it's all in the same process. It's actually a pretty simple process. You're not talking about a 24-inch line, something like that.
I get it.
Yeah, this gentleman is, yep.
It's also just the route of how that construction would do it. I mean, we know that your traffic route and your equipment route is going to be relatively limited based on the rules. I would also hope that the town and yourselves would also formulate into a plan. If you're going to disrupt a portion of town, completely disrupt that portion, please don't come down Bank Street or come down another road and have our whole town go up.
Right.
Because
Well, these are all
this is
things.
people that.
Absolutely.
These are
No,
things
fair
we need to
comment.
hear.
Right, and we would work with the town on
Exactly.
all of that. Do we have an exact layout of where we go? No, not there yet.
No, I don't expect you to. I'm just
Yeah.
asking that should you be disrupting a specific area, if you're going to go down
Yes, sir.
by the ball fields, then put your line down there, put your return line down there.
Makes sense.
Don't because it's $3 million less money to come down through town.
No, fair point.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes, sir.
We hear
So
you.
we need to wrap up, because I know they're gonna get to the airport, and I know you guys are over time, but I know Greg had a question. You're, of course, the ones that invited us here, so I want to make sure.
How much more time can you give us? I mean, can you give us another 15?
Really want to
20
wrap it
minutes?
up at 9:15.
Yeah, we really need to head to the airport.
All right, well, then, can I give you a couple questions? or not?
Sure.
Okay, because I have 3 or 4, but I know maybe some other people want to answer. Will you go into an option, will you buy the option with a clause from the town that allows us to get out of this? Yes or no?
We'd have to go back to management and think about that. I mean, that's the whole process and principle of having an option to pay for all this diligence,
Okay.
right? So if we spend $3 million and all of a sudden you guys say, we don't want you here, right? That's
So let me move on.
wasted time for everybody.
So let me move on to the next one. You talked about size and the demand as picking you said 550 megawatts, and I had to do with, I think, the demand. I think.
Well, there's a lot of different components for the size.
But I'm
Gas,
going to ask you
water, water.
okay, but I was going to ask you if it has anything to do with this. I mean, one is, there's 1,000 megawatts coming on in Dover Plains, there's 758, I think, megawatts coming in Oxford. They're all brand-new facilities, I believe, being built or to be built very soon. Is your 550 restricted because you're in the middle of these two? Is there, I mean, what is the density allowed to be in the area of megawatts? Is there?
No, this is just the site. So CPV, Tawanik, and Oxford is what you're talking about. That is under construction. It was financed in February. Dover is Cricket Valley. It's still in development. They have not financed. We'll see what happens with that. That's also New York, so I would just put that aside. Yes, you're saying it's 20 miles away, but it has nothing to do with New England.
So,
So we're talking about New England.
So you're not restricted, that 550, you're not restricted by being in proximity to those other plants?
No.
Okay.
Now, what you would look at is, can you get this power onto the transmission line? We've done some initial studies. Yes, we can. It's also a design. So one combustion turbine, one steam turbine is roughly, you can do anywhere from 500 to 600 megawatts, depending on the machine you pick. So if you want to make it so the Tawanik plant's older technology, it's 2-on-1, 2 combustion turbines, 1 steam turbine. It's F-class technology. This will be H or G. It's more efficient. The bigger turbines, etc. They're better. So
That's how you're doing 1-on-1 versus 2-on-1.
right. And that's why there's one stack versus two.
I have a question regarding the option.
Yes, sir.
So if I understand what you're saying, our vote at this point in time is critical. And there's a possibility if we allow you the option, if we give you the option, then there's a possibility that we will not have a final say as far as you actually building the power plant. After you obtain all the information, the permitting information, you don't come back to the town and ask again, the townspeople to give you permission to build it?
That's the process with the siting council and the permit. So you have a voice in the siting council.
The siting
No
council,
longer the town.
But this is a critical vote, a critical vote. And it's astounding to me, we should have all of the information at this point in time, because virtually we are approving the power plant, if, assuming that you are going to meet all the standards in Connecticut, which I'm sure you will. So this is a critical vote for us, and we need an extremely detailed.
They've chosen not to give it to us.
Well, listen,
No, sir, I actually disagree. We
Well,
can't give you all.
No, but you can give us,
That's what we're coming back to.
I've said 3 times, we're gonna work on that and do that. This is-
I would have come in with it in the beginning, and I wouldn't have to go ask for permission. I'm sorry.
So, it just seems to me that it's disingenuous to the town to be asking us for a vote. The vote at this point in time is that critical.
I think that's why.
Well, and we're not pushing the vote.
Is most important. I think that rather than voting on giving them an option, I think our town council was elected to take care of town affairs, so we can give them the option. I think we should be, if they want to do their due diligence and give us the information, then after we get the information, then we vote. I think it's very hard for people
The
to
town will do
vote.
that if the town pays for.
No, I don't. These gentlemen approached our town. We didn't approach them. They're looking to buy our property. They're looking to come into our community. They want to be part of our community. I think we should have the same. I mean, it is difficult to give you permission to do what the state will allow you to do in our backyard without us having a say in it. I get that we get to go vote at a referendum. My concern is the timing of the referendum. I think that, and again, I know you said we brought up with town, and that's why Kevin's here. I think the mayor, the town council, should they want to give you an option, that's fine. If at the referendum we decide to not allow you to, there's an option and then there's exercising the option. If we decide that we don't want to allow you to exercise that option,
I think you gotta use the contract for that. I think the option agreement has to be changed for that to happen.
It does.
Well, and let's
but
also talk.
again, like the gentleman said, they're really at the very beginning stages, so there is no contract. I mean, they're here to get the information. So I would be surprised if there's some type of a contract that's already in motion.
Yeah, there's no contract, right. But to your point, and you're talking about timing, et cetera, in the vote, we hear you loud and clear. You want additional information. We're not pushing this to get done in 2 weeks. We are going to work with you, give you all the information that we possibly can right now. Come back, continue doing this, work with you. and get to a point that you guys either agree or
And
disagree.
I feel that that's good, and again, you know,
We're trying, is what
No,
I'm
I
trying to
get
say.
that, and when we were asked to submit specific questions for the council, for the meetings, I honestly thought that either Kevin or a moderator would stand up and ask specific questions. I know everything was kind of covered in the generality, but I actually asked, I'm not in the field, but this gentleman surely is. I simply asked for, you know, take your 3 most recent plants that you've built. You've used the best equipment that's available because that's what you do. You know you're going to burn 800 or 80,000 gallons of natural gas per day. You've stated that. You know you're going to cool it utilizing treatment water from our sewer plant. You can get the information as to what they're discharging from them. Like this gentleman said, surely you can give us a range of what to expect, because I think that's people's biggest concern.
We've heard.
It's all, and like I said, that would be worst case scenario, because we know you're not gonna, if you were to build, you wouldn't build for 2 to 3 years, so the equipment's going to be better, maybe the treatment would be better, you'd have a better calculation coming out of your water treatment plant, what level the water would then be at, so that people know what's going to the Hersey to come out to us. I mean, we just want more information. I think, I understand that it is premature, but I think there are questions that were asked that kind of need a general response rather than, we don't really know, we can't really tell you. It just doesn't look like
Yeah, no, we hear it, and, you know, what we came out and said is, you know, we'll stand, the state standards are required to protect the health and human safety of public citizens in New Milford. We understand that that's not a good enough answer for you. We are going to come back with more answers, as much as we possibly can, and hear you loud and clear. And then with the sewer treatment plant, I wouldn't worry about that water being treated and as clean as other water.
Right, but the thing is that it gives the people who live in the area a better sense of what to expect.
Yes, sir.
Right now, even after the 3 meetings, people just simply don't know.
We understand. And please understand we've heard, we don't disagree with you, okay? We've had a gentleman that is in the power industry that looked over our presentation, and he said this is the most detailed thing I've ever seen this early in the process, and for us it is too. Again, it's just been, everything has been kind of flip-flop. We understand your process, we understand we have to work within it. We're going to go back home, we're going to take the comments that you said, and it's going to require some calculations and getting with some of our engineers, and we're going to take all this feedback and give us a chance to go back and do some work and come back at you.
And again, I just hope that Kevin is here, EDC representative of the town. I hope Kevin will take the thoughts of the people, you know, for timing, just so that these gentlemen do have the time to get information together, to get back to us before, you know.
And we're not going to rush the vote.
Let me speak for Kevin real quick. Kevin has shared every single comment that he's received from you all. We have a full list of questions, and we're working hard to answer them. Yes, sir.
Did I hear that you do in fact have a plant in existence that uses all the technology that you proposed for this one, albeit a bit larger?
Similar. It's actually the equipment that just came out that we're looking at is, you know, more efficient, but it's close.
You do have an air-cooled
Yes, we do have an air plant, yes.
Which plant is that?
That's Liberty.
Liberty and Patriot.
All right, I think it would be pretty easy and
That's where we're going.
and relevant to your proposal to provide a lot more data on that particular plant.
And we've even talked about, you know, chartering a bus, so that's in Pennsylvania, having, you know, the business folks like yourself to go and see the plant, actually walk around the plant, see what it would look like here. It'd be half the size, but I actually think it'd be great if you all were interested to do something like that. I really do. Because until you see it, you look at a picture and you're saying, this is, you don't like it, is what I'm hearing from a lot of you, and half of you say you do.
Yeah, and you can pretty easily provide historical data on the operation of the existing
that
plant.
those were just commissioned, one last week and one next week, so they're just started, literally.
I think that would be very helpful in your continuing presentation.
Do you have time for any more, or are you done?
What time is it?
Yeah, we get it.